and just think of that gold embroidery just sparkling through the organza. It would look gorgeous. G'day everyone, and welcome to another Breakdown Wednesday, where I take cosplay designs that you've recommended to me and I break them down, and at the end of the video we discuss whether or not taking on this project would actually break me. And today we have got Suki from The Last Airbender, as designed by Hannah Alexander. Now, I have seen this outfit done a number of different times, and each time it has been spectacular. So I'm very excited to dig my teeth into this one, especially as a very big fan of Avatar. You all know I love Toph, and Suki is definitely up there as like my top probably 3 favorite characters. So let's dive into her and we will see what we think. I'm excited to do this one also because of the fact that I know Sunset Dragon designs really quite well now, especially the Avatar ones, because I've like poured over them, especially Toph. And to be honest, I've never done a Hannah Alexander design yet. And that's definitely not because I don't love her designs, because I absolutely do. I just haven't found one that I like connect with, like with my heart. But I love them. I love seeing people do them, and I just like, my mouth waters every time I see her artwork. So let's crack on. So the first thing I just want to mention is the wig. So we've got this beautiful brown wig, shoulder length, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. You're probably going to look at getting like a lace front, because of the fact that we have got the fringe pulled back into this bun. But other than that, it's nothing too crazy. You may want to look at trying to get like one that has a bit of an ombre dye that goes a bit more blonde at the end. But I think it's gorgeous. We'll get back to the headpieces and all of that a little bit later, but I just want to point out the wig first because it actually looks like a very comfortable wig to wear, and I like that. I'm not gonna lie, I love a good short wig, because wearing a long wig for an entire convention, it can get hot, it can get tangled. This would actually sit relatively nicely for the entire day, I would imagine. Let's move down, shall we? So this one is interesting because we've got a dress, we've got like over little like falls, we've got a loincloth which connects to the bodice, it looks like, and then we've got these leather pieces and obviously sleeves and armor and her fan, of course. So there's lots of different parts of this that I want to break down. Now let's start off with the underdress, because for me, I always try to work the bottom layer out. So start with the base and then move up. So the underdress, if we're just purely to look at this, it is a over the shoulder, so you know, you can wear a normal bra, over the shoulder, straight down the back, you know, straight down into this beautiful, very wide skirt. Now, the great thing about this is that if you wanted to, you could put a seam at the waist because it is going to be fully covered. If you don't want to draft this entire thing as like panels of like from shoulders down to the floor, you can do it that way. It would look beautiful, but we all know that sometimes, depending on our height, the fabric that we use is not long enough to accommodate that, especially with this one because it does have a bit of a train to it. So you may have to look at putting a waist seam in there. But what we do have is we have got this ombre. I know, another ombre dye. So it's not too bad. It's just that the bottom is lighter. So we've got a light on bottom. So for that, it's going to be an ombre dye. So you'll end up having, or what you would need to do is get a light green fabric and then dye it so that the majority from about here upwards is this dark green. So it's not actually too bad because the ombre dye is not for the entire length. For the majority of it, you're going to have one like color, which is fabulous as someone who has done ombre dyeing recently, you know, and especially green ombre dyeing. This is excellent news. And then we also have this trim here, because it's a very full skirt that's going to be quite rounded. You're probably looking at, once again, something like a bias binding that has been used as a trim, something that has a bit of stretch to it, because if you use ribbon, it will bunch. So I'm just going to say bias binding sort of trim, or bias trim, okay? And that's set in from the edge, so you'd need to hem it. You wouldn't have to do anything too fancy with that hem, but yeah, you'd need to leave space and then put that ribbon detailing around the edge of it. And yes, do remember that we have got a train. Keep in mind though, if you're walking around the con floor, you don't have to do these designs absolutely perfect to this. I mean, if you're entering competition, maybe try, you know, add the train, make it really long, wear high heels because she's very elongated, and I know for myself, being hobbit sized, I would need a bit of extra length to me. But honestly, you could do this as being, you know, just doing it to ankle length and not having the train. But if, you know, if you want it to be a replica exactly, yeah, you're going to have the train, and you're probably going to have to wear high heels underneath it, because this is like an anime proportion body. Like, if you have a look at like her waist versus where her feet would be, that's what I would say that's like, yeah, it's like 2/3 of her body is her waist to her legs. I don't know anyone who is built like that, I don't think. But, you know, we can have the illusion. All right, let's talk about the next layer down. And the next layer down are these falls. So these falls come from the waist. So this might be something that you would either build into the waist seam if you are going to put a waist seam in, or you would have it as a separate piece that could be, you know, clipped at the waist. And these are ombre dyed. Once again, we've got, you know, a good majority of it being a solid color. So you always start with the lightest color and then dye it to the darker one. Doing it the other way with color remover is very risky business. I do not recommend it, but we've got more ombre dye. Okay. And we've got this beautiful trim here. So this is a lovely trim and looks like it could also be embroidery. Okay, so for that one, I think that you could do it as a few different ways. You could either do it with a black or a dark green base, and then find like a it looks like it's probably like a silver or a like antique gold or a white gold even, kind of lace that's been put on top of it, and it looks like it's 3 rows of like a lace that's similar like that. Or you could do it embroidery if you wanted to, or if you wanted to, you could certainly do something like screen printing or something like that. Now, in terms of fabrics, I would actually do the same type of fabric for both of these, and I would do something like a crepe, or I would have like a beautiful satin, something that has a lot of beautiful drape to it. So like a kind of lightweight satin, so good quality satin, or a crepe, okay? Then let's move on to this next piece. So, and when I say this next piece, what I'm referring to is this kind of loincloth that comes into the bodice, or at least it looks like it should be the same piece. Whether or not you do it as the same piece, that is going to be completely up to you. Now, for this, it does appear, I would still say that there's some sort of seam underneath that potentially, or it's going to be an applique piece that you're going to have on in the middle there. And this, to me, reads like a completely different fabric to this. So this is going to be something, I would do this in something like a beautiful silk taffeta. Okay, And this one, I would probably do this just to kind of make it a little bit different. I would do this as like a Gipione, just because I love the texture that it gives. But that's just me personally. Once again, you know, personal choice. And so that way they will have a similar shine because they're coming both from silk, but you're going to have one that's very smooth and then one that's textured. And then you also have the gold trim as well. So let's talk about the golds on this section. So you've got all of this beautiful gold down the bottom, and to me, that would pop, absolutely pop, with some like bullion wire, or, you know, metal embroidery and like metallics through that. I think that that would look so beautiful, and to do them in maybe slightly different golds, slightly different bullion wire, it would just read so beautifully, you know, and make everyone kind of notice. So for this, I'm gonna say bullion wire, okay. Or I think it's called like French wire or something like that. It's a dream to work with. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I think it creates the most beautiful, beautiful embroidery. So I would do that, and then I would either do that as the trim going up as well, or I would find a trim that would work with the embroidery techniques that I use. Then I would also look at doing embroidery here as well, and potentially do that out of a similar kind of technique. So I would do that also potentially as bullion wire or embroidery, just embroidery in general. And why I would do that is because of the fact that it is front and it is center. We're drawing in the eyes to the most beautiful part of your cosplay as it sits on you. Now, if you didn't want to do any kind of embroidery or anything like that, you could always do something like heat transfer vinyl or foiling. Those are, you know, secondary ideas that would also work very, very well. But let's face it, I'm a bit extra. Let's move on. So connecting that is these beautiful kind of clips, and then we've got the ropes. The ropes are pretty self-explanatory. I would just find some red rope, and I would have that all the same for all the different parts that you find the red rope on this outfit, and have them with the, and find or make the gold kind of ends to those particular ropes. For the little kind of heads here, and also this big head on the side. Honestly, how I would do this is I would 3D model it. Now, I'm the first one to say that I do not have those skills. I would need to either learn those skills or look at getting those commissioned, or see if someone else has that available. You could do them out of foam if you wanted to, especially if you wanted to sculpt them, but trying to get two of the same and make them look identical will be very, very difficult. That's why I think a 3D print of these would probably be the best way to go, because you're going to get them identical. I mean, look, you could always like carve it out of clay or sculpt it, should I say, and then make a cast of it and then fill it with resin and then do it that way. That's another way. To me, that's just as hard as learning how to 3D model something. So I would probably do all of these as 3D models. Okay. It would also be very cool if you could do the eye of the, I'm not sure exactly what that's meant to be, but the eye here, I would do that as a kind of red light, if I could, like put little red lights into it and have a hollow kind of a cavity in here where a small battery pack could go. Now, before we go on any further, I will say that there is probably going to be a back image of this on Hannah Alexander's Patreon. I don't have access to that, and even if I did, I wouldn't be sharing it on this channel because I don't believe that that would be morally correct. I think that artists deserve to get paid and deserve to get paid for the work that they produce, especially for us cosplayers who want a challenge, who want to look beautiful. You know, if you are planning on doing this outfit or maybe one of the other Hannah Alexander's, go onto a Patreon, sign up for a Patreon, and that way you can get the back reference images, you know, and that will help you with your creation. But let's continue, shall we? Because I'm just making up some assumptions here of how it closes and that sort of thing. Like the dress, honestly, it's probably got some sort of side zip that you would use to get in. That's how I would do it. And honestly, I think that that's probably going to be the neatest way of doing that. Otherwise, if you really want it easy, you could do a front zip right here down the front to get in and out, if you so wanted to, because honestly, no one's going to see it. So I've done cosplays that have a front zip because it has worked out better and I can get it on and off easily. If it's going to be covered, there's no shade. Don't feel like you have to make a garment exactly the way that it would look like it should be. Like if the zip is going to be hidden, go for it. All right, I digress. Let us continue. The next thing I will just say is about these side panels. So to me, these ones here, they're beautiful leather work. And that is what I would want to do. I would either make them out of leather or faux leather, or I would look at doing this out of a very lightweight foam, these pieces, and then add texture to them to make them look like leather and paint them up as such. So you will need to pattern all of this out, and to me this wraps around to the back, and I would probably have this somehow connected to the belt. I think that the belt is the way to go for this, and if you create some supports, especially going upwards, then that will help hold the shape of that and for it to fall underneath the kind of top flap, if you like, of this front piece here. So this is two parts. So you've got a little bit on the torso, and then we've got another piece that comes down over the hips, and then a third one underneath that, and then we've got these tabs. And yeah, like I said, I would do this out of leather or faux leather, or, you know, if I can't get my hands on that, I would do foam. And I would use probably some embroidery floss or something like that to get this really cool gold floss. Okay. And depending on the type of material that I'm using, I would select a gold trim that would work for it. So if I was working with foam, I would get I would just create a foam part up the top and I would paint that gold. If I was working with leather, I would probably look at getting some sort of leather or leatherette that is gold or can be painted gold with leather paint before I put it onto the garment. All right, hopefully that all makes sense. And like I said, I would connect this to the belt. Now the belt does look like it is closed in the front. To me, it does look like there is a closure that folds over here. And what I would do is I would have the closure behind this section here, this gold piece, which I would once again 3D print, or I would make it out of foam if I didn't feel like I could do that as a 3D print, but I reckon even I could do that as a 3D print because it's just flat pieces stacked on top of each other. And I would have the closure behind there, so you would pull this off and then this is over here where it closes. If you wanted to, you could even put the closure over here. I'm just going by what looks like there's a line there. The belt itself, I would make sure that that is very sturdy, so I would probably use something like a buckram or a pigeon tape inside of it to keep its strength. Probably buckram because of the fact that it looks like it may get narrower on the side and potentially at the back. And I would do a very, very fine type of bias binding, potentially in gold, around here to detail it, so more bias binding. Or something to that effect, something that can curve, because obviously we've got the curve. There are no sharp corners. So you want to have something that can do a gentle curve. So now let's go on and talk about the sleeves. So the sleeves are a little bit different. So we have got something that looks like it's a organza or a chiffon, organza or chiffon, okay, over the top of, and that's more of like a long kind of puff sleeve that actually goes over the top of these cuffs. Gorgeous. And then we've got a fitted sleeve that's underneath that, so a fitted sleeve. So for the fitted sleeve, I would probably look at trying to keep that married into the main dress. So I would be looking at doing that in the same type of fabric as we've got the rest of the dress in. And that one is more of like a long puff sleeve. Honestly, I would probably look at more doing organza than chiffon because it does look like it's quite a full material. So that is what I would do there. Let's talk about the armor on the sleeves here. So we've talked about the head over here, but it's quite similar in terms of these. So we have got a 2-layered armored piece. So it's 2-layer armor, okay. And one of them has got these golden like rectangles that look like they've been like drilled onto there. You could do this out of foam, you could do these as 3D prints. It really comes down to what you're comfortable with. I would probably just do these as foam, keep it easy, and then just use, just kind of carve out where the holes are with a very small punching tool. I've got something from Cos Tools that I would probably use to help me achieve that. And I would say the base, it looks like it is raised from the larger base, so like the midsection onto the base. So I would probably do both of these out of foam. Okay, so I'm running out of room here. So I would do these out of foam and these as well. And then for this, there is a strap that attaches that around the arm, and over here we've got the rope which attaches it to the arm. I would probably look at a way that would ensure that it attaches to that and not just rely on these single straps. Just because I know that in the past, if you have an item that is on a limb, like your leg or your arm, and it's just kind of floating there, even if it's just a strap kind of around, there is the tendency that it may fall. So I would find some kind of way to secure it up the top in here to the sleeve itself, to the top of the shoulder. And that way you've got the main support around here, but you've just got a little bit of support at the shoulders, and that way it's not going anywhere. It just kind of stabilizes everything. As Senpai Kamui says, make sure any type of armor is connected in at least 3 different spots. So if you've got 2 spots up here and then you've got 1 going around, and maybe even an extra tab on the inside underneath it connecting it to the sleeve, then it won't be going anywhere. Let's now talk about these gorgeous cuffs, because you've got the organza sleeve coming on top and kind of cutting them. So for these, I would probably look at doing them as fake kind of armor. I would do them out of the same silk taffeta, but I would back them with some sort of buckram or stiff interfacing, and I would do the same type of embroidery that I have got on that chest piece on those cuffs. I think it would look gorgeous. And that way you can sew them directly onto the undersleeve. And just think of that gold embroidery just sparkling through the organza. It would look gorgeous, especially on stage. Oh, the light's hitting it. Love it. And then you have this kind of piece that would be connected. I honestly would probably look at not doing this as like a full piece. I'd do that as one section and then have a little section here that I would sew a bit of a seam. It's going to be covered by the organza sleeve that's coming down anyway, and so that way it's got a bit of a hinge, and you're not going to be bending all of this beautiful work that's quite secure. You're just bending at the seam. It just means that you're going to move a bit more freely. And I think if you also do this as like some sort of, you pattern it out obviously, you do this as a stiff interfacing or a buckram kind of base, then it's going to work out very nicely. And yeah, once again, I'd probably use the same fabric, or I would use a slightly lighter charcoal fabric if you so wished. For me, I would probably use the same, even though it's not directly the same. To me, I just think it would read better. And yeah, don't forget to paint your nails red. Then we have the fan. The fan is just a straightforward gold fan, nothing too crazy. I think that it's up to you how you choose to make that. You can either buy a regular fan if you so wish. Otherwise, if you wanted to, you can make it out of foam. You could 3D print it. I honestly would say feel free to kind of give it a bit of a more ornate feeling to it, because it is quite plain. Or if you wanted to be extra, you could get something that shines, that looks like it's metallic, and that would look incredible. So yeah, I would probably do that, to be honest. I would get something, or I would make something and give it a very, very true gold shine, so that it looked like it was a weapon, and it was shiny, and it was feminine, and it was gorgeous. Speaking of gorgeous, let's finish up with her headpiece. So up here, firstly, we've got a little crown in her little top knot of flowers. I would say you could either buy them or you could make them. Making flowers is so much fun. You know, if you want to, you could experiment with making some silk flowers. I think that would lend it very nicely to this, and create a little garland that goes around. So we've got some little pink ones that look like they're sakura flowers or something like that. And then we've got these larger white ones, and then we've got the leaves as well. So nothing too crazy, but that could be a lot of fun to make those. And then we've got this headpiece, and this headpiece and the earrings actually are just gorgeous. The earrings, nothing too crazy. These are just long strings with tassels attached. If you wanted to, and you want to be extra, you could do these as seed beads coming all the way down, then a large red bead, and then actually create tassels that are either, you know, seed beads themselves, or you could do them just as regular tassels and then attach them at the end. That would look very, very interesting. Or you could just do them as long kind of wire coming down, balloon wire, for example, if you want to bring that in. I've never used that in jewelry, but I would give it a shot. Why not? And then I would connect these to a kind of stud earring base, and that would be how I'd do that. I wouldn't overcomplicate that. Then we've got this headpiece here. So this headpiece, you could do it out of foam, you could do it as a 3D print. I would probably look at doing it as a 3D print, so that way I can get it mirrored on each side. 3D print, print, and I would connect it onto a kind of green headband, so a thin green headband. Headband. Even though it's kind of going the wrong kind of way, that is how I would do that. Or, no, I wouldn't do it as a green thin headband. What am I talking about? I would do this as a ribbon. Dogs have something to say about my choice there. Thank you. The good thing about doing that way means that you can actually sew that into the wig if you so wish. So that way it's very, very secure. And of course we've got these beautiful beads. So these are just gold beads that either you've strung yourself or you can get the strands of them. I'd probably just get the strands and do that. And yeah, and then obviously the red gem as well, just a single red gem that you can use your beading skills to attach to that front piece here. So yeah, and the makeup is not too difficult, but I do love it. We've got the red eyes, we've got the shortened eyebrows, and we've got a little red underneath here, and we've got the red lips. I think that's doable, nothing too crazy, and obviously beautiful eyelashes and eyeliner pulling up. This is a gorgeous design, everyone. I think that I understand why so many cosplayers have done this design, because it is stunning. Now, would this break me if I did it? I would say quite potentially. If I wasn't going to enter her into a competition. So for me, I tend to do these types of designs when there's a competition at stake, because for me that is a good driving factor. Would I make her just for a regular wear? No, I wouldn't. She doesn't look to me like she'd be a very comfortable, normal, like, wear attire. I just don't think that I would put myself through that suffering for just wearing onto a con floor. I would want to show her off, especially with all the bits and pieces to this. But I would take her on. Suki is such a wonderful character, so I will never say no to this particular design. It may happen in the future, but she's definitely not in my plans at the moment. Anyway guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. In the comments below, tell me your thoughts about this design and tell me what your favorite Hannah Alexander design is. I'd love to know. I love looking at her artwork. Make sure you like, subscribe and all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!